We're following breaking news in a mansion mystery in Texas. A mom accused of attempting to drown her 3 children after giving them NyQuil is now facing felony charges. This is per KPRC TV in Houston. Jessica Quintana has been recovering in the hospital ever since the morning of September 29th when the bizarre case first broke. I'll tell you what police are now unveiling about what allegedly happened at that mansion as her husband has been barred from seeing the kids that she allegedly tried to drown. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. This is a huge development in what has been a complete mystery in Texas. Jessica Quintana is now facing 3 felony charges. She's been in the hospital since September 29th, but now she is headed back to Liberty County, Texas, outside of Houston, where she will be in the county jail. Friday, authorities in Liberty County charged the 39-year-old Jessica Quintana with 2 counts of injury to a child causing bodily injury and 1 charge of assault causing bodily injury. Those are all felonies. There is so much that has made this story bizarre, and bizarre is the word that law enforcement used to describe what they saw on September 29th at this massive mansion in a rural part of Texas. Now, before I get into what could happen now to Domingo Quintana, he's the husband, as well as the couple's 3 kids, they are still in state custody. Let's talk about what happened on September 29th. It was a Monday. Quintana, the dad, called 911 from that multi-million-dollar mansion located on that massive plot of land in Liberty County that's more than an hour away from Houston.
You're going to have 4 kids, off-duty on NyQuil, multiple bottles on scene.
That's the radio chatter per Broadcastify. According to law enforcement, Quintana called 911 saying that his wife, Jessica, took their 3 children down to a pond on their property and she was allegedly trying to hurt the kids. Initially, it was reported that the 39-year-old woman was giving her kids NyQuil, but deputies haven't confirmed that, but we did hear it on the radio. Deputies say when they arrived, Domingo Quintana, Jessica's husband, was wet. It appeared that he had pulled his 3 children from the water. Their ages are 6, 11, and 15. His wife, again, her name Jessica Quintana, 39 years old, she was still in the water. Deputies pulled her from the pond. She and the 11-year-old were airlifted to a Houston hospital. The other 2 children were taken to the hospital as well. All 4 survived. Jessica Quintana and that 11-year-old, though, when they went to the hospital, they were in critical condition. Here's what deputies told the media hours after that incident. This is per Fox 26 in Houston.
I believe it was the dad that was helping get anybody that was in the water out of the water. Upon the deputies arriving, the kids were wet, the dad was wet, and the mother was still in the water. And the deputies are the ones, I believe, that got in and got the mother out of the water.
So right now, you say you're focused on the mom as the suspect or perpetrator?
So right now, we don't have a specific focus on the mom or the dad. We're looking at both.
Since then, it has been weeks of silence. Jessica was in the hospital recovering, but her husband did get into some legal trouble. Deputies say as they were investigating the Quintana property, they found an emaciated cat locked in a shed without food and water. They also found dogs and chickens allegedly in bad condition. Quintana was booked on a misdemeanor animal cruelty charge, spent the night in jail, and bonded out after a hearing where his bond was set at $5,000. Now, it certainly raised some red flags that he would be charged with a misdemeanor on the same day that his wife allegedly tried to hurt his 3 children.
Mr. Quintana, do you have anything to say?
Here's video of Quintana being swarmed by media outside of the jail after he posted bond. He was covering his face. He didn't answer questions as he left the Liberty County jail. Now, this is the person who reportedly was driving the car as he left jail, and this is a very interesting development in this story. That person, that driver, was Liberty Police Department Lieutenant Ramiro Lozano. This is his picture from the department's Facebook page. Lozano was suspended because he visited Quintana while he was in jail before he posted bond. His agency is not the one investigating this case. It's in the hands of the Texas Rangers, and it was in the hands of the county sheriff before that. It's still unclear what the two talked about behind bars. KHOU-TV says that the lieutenant was suspended pending an internal investigation. Now, as far as Quintana's wife, Jessica, that's really the big story here today, this new development. What makes her facing felony charges even more shocking is that her husband was the one who DCF barred from seeing the kids. This is video of Domingo Quintana per CW39 in Houston on his way into a court hearing over custody of the children. He didn't answer questions there either. The judge did not allow cameras in the courtroom for that hearing. Per ABC 13 in Houston, during the hearing, an attorney for the children told the court that when CPS asked the children about their mom's well-being, the children reacted negatively when they were asked if they wanted to see their dad, Domingo Quintana. But remember, Jessica Quintana is the one now facing felony charges for allegedly trying to hurt the kids. The judge granted Jessica Quintana, though, a 1-hour visitation with the children, and Domingo Quintana was barred from seeing the children. Police said that Jessica Quintana was released from the hospital on Friday, and that is when she was hit with those felony charges. Law enforcement has yet to give a detailed narrative of what they believe happened. They've only said what they were told. We are working to get court documents. Now, it does appear that the Quintana family has been in some legal and financial trouble. This is a judgment from January of this year after Quintana was sued in 2023 in Harris County, that's where Houston is, in the category of debt, contract fraud, misrepresentation. We don't have the documents laying out that case against Quintana, but the court ruled in the favor of the plaintiff, according to the document, and Quintana was on the hook for more than $138,000. We also found there is an active case in Liberty County where Quintana is accused of not paying taxes for years on a 72-acre property. The suit claims that he owes more than $43,000 in that case. Now, as for the mom, Jessica Quintana, we found that she is listed as the owner of a property in Houston where she is accused of being more than $18,000 behind on taxes. That is per the Harris County Tax Collector's website. Now, it's unclear if any of these civil issues factor into what happened at the home on September 29th. We are still waiting for more information from the Liberty County Sheriff's Office, but I do want to read for you the final line in what they sent us earlier today. They have yet to release the arrest warrants or probable cause affidavit. They have released statements, though, and they sign off saying, quote, "At this time, it is not confirmed whether the father of the children will be facing any charges." Joining us now to talk more about this story is retired Detective Commander with the Chicago Police Department, Will Svilar. Thank you as always for being with us on Law and Crime. I know we've talked about this case since it happened back at the end of September and continues to just take some bizarre twists because we haven't really heard from police the specific narrative that they think happened. But Jessica Quintana, the mom, is facing some pretty serious felony charges. What do you make of those charges coming down on her?
Well, I mean, I think that the investigation is complete or close to complete, and they've got the interviews they needed. They have the physical evidence they needed. They talked to the children, and based on their entire investigation, and I think the interviews are a big part of it, they've determined that the mother is the one that gave the kids the drugs or gave the kids a NyQuil and brought them out into the pond. So I think they've established that enough to support the charges.
Because from the beginning, it's just, I mean, this was the term that the deputies used, it was just bizarre. And there's still questions that I have about why she was still in the pond, allegedly, when law enforcement arrived, but the kids were out. That hasn't really been explained. Even though that she's facing some serious charges, I guess where are still some of the questions you have about what exactly happened?
Well, the exact question I had is what exactly happened? What was going on in that house that caused this mother to harm her children? That's not a very common thing. And as far as her being in the water, and I wondered about that too, but God forbid my kids were ever in that situation. I'm getting my kids out first. I mean, that's just human nature, I guess. But I'm very curious as to about what was going on in that house. Why the mom's charged, the dad's not charged. I'm very curious as to the events that led to this event, the big event.
when you look at Domingo Quintana, who's the father, and he was facing this misdemeanor animal cruelty charge, which I know we talked about that just being kind of interesting considering, I mean, especially now with the mom. Like, do you look at that a little differently now, knowing that she's facing charges where it still seems a bit off that if she is now accused of doing this, that they would still hit him with a misdemeanor that day?
Well, I mean, they don't, well, again, the first day, when, like, the investigators, when they get out there, like you said, it's bizarre, right? It's nobody really knows what's going on. The prudent thing to do is separate the children from both parents, because until you figure out what's going on. Now, this animal cruelty thing, you know, it gives you a reason to keep the dad away. The mom's in the hospital, the kids are in the hospital. It gives you a reason to keep the dads away. And again, I'm not saying they make up a charge, because if there's a charge and you're a police officer or a law enforcement official and you see a criminal act, you take action. But it also gives you access to the property to see if there's any more dogs and, you know, whatever you can find. But nobody knew what was going on initially. The prudent move is to separate everybody and protect the children. That's the move. That's what you have to do. You have to protect the children.
And those children are still in, from the latest statement that we have, that the 3 kids are still in CPS custody right now. Because I think the interesting part of this is that in the CPS hearing that they had, the father was barred from seeing the kids, and yet the mom was allowed to have supervised visitation with the kids while she was still in the hospital. Is that unique, that considering she's facing these specific charges, very serious, I mean, she's being accused of potentially really trying to harm these kids, that she would still be allowed to see them, even if the dad, I mean, he's not facing any charges related to this right now, as if he had no part in it.
It's very strange. Very, very strange, as a matter of fact. I don't know when these interviews took place, when the visitation took place. Did they have all the evidence then? Had they conducted the interviews with the children before that? It would be very weird. And if I was running the investigation, I would have these interviews, these forensic interviews, done prior to allowing them access to either one of the parents. Because, you know, you made a decision to take these kids out of the home. There's responsibility with that. So I would make sure that I had these interviews done, because, you know, think about with your children and my children, the influence we have over our children. You know, if you can skew them one way or the other. So it's curious that they allowed this, but the curious thing is they'd allowed it, and then they charged her, and then they wouldn't give the dad access. So I'm wondering what the story is in there. Is this a situation where the father was abusive or whatever, to the point where the mother couldn't take it anymore? I mean, is it a mental health thing? Obviously, it's a mental health thing, but it's more complex than it is on the surface.
It really is. And it's just every development in this case has just made it even more bizarre. And I think we were probably learning, as police were learning at the same time, about what exactly happened. But the other development, I'll say, that came out of left field was this police lieutenant for the Liberty Police Department. And Liberty Police were not investigating this case. It was the local sheriff's office that was, and then it gets handed over to the Texas Rangers. But this lieutenant goes and visits Domingo Quintana in jail. And he's also the person who, when Domingo Quintana bonds out, he's the person who drives him home. Now, it's not have a friend in law enforcement is not a crime, but what are some of the issues you would see? And apparently his agency, because he's on leave pending an internal investigation, if he did that, why would that be concerning that he visited him in jail?
The fact that he visited him in jail is not concerning. What's concerning is, did he take the steps that you and I would have to do to go visit somebody? Did you get cleared? Did you get permission? Does the person know you're coming? Are you sitting in a room like everybody else that goes to visit? Is the conversation being recorded like all those conversations are? Or did you use your influence and your position to backdoor that whole thing and pull him into a side room and talk to him? That's a problem. If you did that, you have no investigative responsibility in this whatsoever. If you used your position to circumvent the rules, that's a big problem.
If the Texas Rangers are investigating this, and, for whoever the lead investigator is, and you hear that a police lieutenant, even in a private capacity, went to visit him, and maybe they are close friends and there's nothing more to it than that, would that still be something like within the law enforcement community that would kind of cross the line and raise concerns, even if it wasn't illegal to do that, or even, in terms of the official ethics on the book? But if you were the detective leading this investigation, you find out some guy from another jurisdiction is visiting, someone who you're investigating potentially related to this case, like how inside kind of the police community would that be viewed?
That's not good. That's not good. I'm going to tell you right now, because if it was my case, or if I had a friend that was locked up and I wanted to go see him, my first call would be to the investigating officer, say, hey, listen, this is a friend of mine. I'm going to go talk to him. I'm not going to discuss the case, because if you are a law enforcement official, and this is back when I was a detective, if a supervisor went into an interview room to talk to my person without telling me, that's a problem. If another detective did that, that's a problem. If you're using, again, we talk about this, if he's his friend, he's his friend. But you're a law enforcement, and you're a supervisor in law enforcement, you know the rules. And the rules are, you don't interfere with somebody else's investigation.
What is and for people watching, and I get kind of twisted on this sometimes, because when I think of lieutenant in the military, you're an officer, but on the lower level compared to some of the other, how much power does a lieutenant have in a police department like the Liberty Police Department?
I don't know how big that police department is. I just know, like in Chicago, the higher you go, the less there are. Obviously, there's 13,000 police officers in Chicago, and X amount of supervisors. When you get to the rank of lieutenant, you're in charge of all the sergeants. You're in charge of everybody below the rank of sergeant. Okay, so it's a pretty high rank, and there's only a few above it. It's not like the military. There's only a few ranks above lieutenant in the Chicago Police Department. There's like 4 ranks above lieutenant before you get to the top. And I imagine in this department they got deputy chiefs, and then maybe only 3 or 4 people above him, if that many. So the rank of lieutenant is up there a little bit.
They've charged, again, Jessica Quintana is facing these charges, 2 charges of injury to a child causing bodily injury, and then that 1 charge of assault causing bodily injury. And then they end the statement that they sent to us, the Liberty County Sheriff's Office. It says, at this time, it is not confirmed whether the father of the children will be facing any charges. If they've talked to the kids and they have this narrative to believe that Jessica Quintana did what she's accused of doing, allegedly giving NyQuil to the children, allegedly trying to drown the children, but things are still up in the air of whether or not the dad is going to face charges. What's happening right now about figuring out whether that's actually going to happen?
Now, you mentioned something interesting. We talked about the charges, intentionally harming a child, but we also talk about she drugged the kids and then she put them in a pond and tried to drown them. That's a different thing. That's an attempted murder charge which has not been levied. So why? I'm saying this. The woman is getting out of the hospital, right? There's no need to make an arrest while she's in the hospital. She's not going anywhere. And if you do something like that, now you have to put police guard on that. Hospitals don't really like that if they can avoid it. She's getting out. You have the evidence you need to support the charges that you levied against her. There must still be something going on for them to make a statement that we're not sure if the dad's going to face any charges. So there must be still something going on, and I don't know what that could be. Maybe it's talking to her to see if she has anything to say about things. Because she was down for a while. She was, I think she was unconscious when she was found, and it was a while before she was medically cleared. So the investigation is not over. The investigation is at the point where they can support the charges they brought. As far as the dad goes, the whole thing is weird about the dad. Again, he's the outcry in this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the outcry isn't the offender. Or maybe who knows what's going on in that house. Maybe we're finding out things from these kids that goes a lot deeper than just drugging somebody and bring them into a pond.
It's an interesting point, because I had that same kind of thought myself, is if what was originally reported is, the mom allegedly trying to drown those kids, especially after giving them NyQuil, I mean, that would be an attempted murder charge, you would think, but that's not what she's being charged with here. And police really haven't really, again, like the kind of the narrative of like what happened, that hasn't been released to the local media or the public at this point. What is the timeline that a police agency can have when it comes to, because I imagine for Domingo Quintana, the dad, if he's completely innocent and he literally just witnessed his wife try to harm his kids and he calls 911 and yet he's still the suspect in this investigation. How long could he have that hanging over his head until someone, whether it's the police or the Texas Rangers, the district attorney, decides that things are closed?
In Illinois, if it's a felony, it's 3 years. If it's a misdemeanor, it's 18 months. So he could have this investigation could go on for 3 years before they have to either charge or it goes away. So it could be quite a while. I don't think it'll take that long, but the law in Illinois anyway is 3 years for felonies, and 18 months statute of limitation on misdemeanors, unless it's, capital murder. There's no statute of limitations on that. And I believe like treason or something like that, some obscure one where there is no statute of limitations.
Okay, so this could, depending on Liberty County, Texas, or the state of Texas, I mean, it could go for a long period of time. Once you have, and if they have their narrative, I mean, they've talked to the kids, they're in CPS custody, they're going to talk, I assume, to Jessica Quintana. We'll see if she has a defense attorney, with her and what type of communication there is there. What is it like, I guess, within a police agency right now? Are you just sitting and waiting for someone in the DA's office to give the thumbs up to go forward with it? Are you just reviewing the evidence that you already have? Like, what work is potentially being done right now over that period of time of making a decision of whether he could face charges?
So there's a couple of things going on. There's probable cause to make an arrest, which the burden is a little lower, but right now the police department or the investigators are working with the prosecutors, and they're coming up with all the evidence, and they're deciding whether or not they can move further. Now, in Jessica's case, she's got the right to a probable cause hearing or maybe direct indictment. In either case, all the facts that they have against her have to be presented at that time for a judge to decide or a grand jury to decide if the case could move forward. So that's probably going on when it relates to the father. They're probably trying to figure out the evidence. Is there evidence to move forward? The probable cause to make an arrest is one thing. To move forward with a prosecution that is successful is totally different. It's like it's an analogy of what do we know and what can we prove. Two different things.
And we'll see what happens. I mean, this is definitely a new development. We're waiting for information to come out if she was going to be released from the hospital, if and when, and what that would look like. So police charging her here with 3 felonies. We'll see if Domingo Quintana faces charges. Svilar, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thank you for just a bizarre case, and you've been with us every step of the way. We appreciate it.
No worries, Chris. Nice talking to you.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.